Alrighty, so I'm going to jump on into the IEM Rio team's intro. I'm making this for a friend, so this is actually going to be a little bit later than we might all prefer. Considering there have been plenty of games played. We're already deep into the Legend stage, second major stage of any CSGO major. So let's go ahead and move on over. So are the teams as they were. Some of them, most of them, at least at this point, have been eliminated. We're already starting to secure the playoff teams that'll be going off into the, what is that going to be? The Challenger? No. I'm forgetting the name. Yeah. Into the playoffs, basically. That's all we really need to know. Most everyone in the contenders and challengers have been filtered through, and the Legend stage is what is currently happening at the time of this recording. Now let's get on to each team so that I can actually get this explanation out for my buddy. Now, first team up on deck here, we're going alphabetical order, is going to be Big Clan, our fun big guys from Germany. They are playing with a play-in right now, who will be Sin. I believe that's the guy on the far right over here. Somehow I'm doing double pen. And there's good things we can expect out of them. Searson actually so far has been looking really powerful. He's a very quiet person and was a superstar during the online era, but has not actually been showing up once we've actually gotten to LAN, we've gotten to stadiums, we've gotten to like much more higher pressure situations, and he's not sitting in his dark ass cave at his house. Big highlights for this are actually going to be around Tabson and Searson as two major players or carries. Would want to put some info on Crimbo, but I believe Crimbo is out. Who's out? I'm trying to remember who is out right now. Tabson taking head. Yeah, so currently Favin is benched, one of their young players that they have pulled out from their academy roster. So they have decent potential, but this is a highly strategic team, very rigorous, very methodical. But they usually don't really take themselves as far as they did in recent years because they really stick to the German and only nothing but a German team. So that'll be Big Clan. They can be fun. They can be good. But yeah, I'm not too hyped for them. Next up, we're going to have Cloud9. This is actually a dark horse, mostly because their narrative is so checkered. They were monsters, if not top of the world during the online era when we were all locked in for COVID. And since we've gone back to LAN, much like Searson, much like a lot of star players and teams that were running around during the online era when you could just play the game in an entirely different way due to how ping and everything works, they've been falling apart. They've not been able to stand out like they could before, and now we're seeing if they've gotten we're always checking to find out if they've gotten enough lands underneath their belt for their big players, Shiro and Exile, to really show up, really deliver, and frankly, this team just take the whole gambit. Just go all out, beat everyone, knock everyone down, put Navi in the dirt. But that remains to be seen. At the time of this recording, they have made it into the playoffs. So they have cleared Legend stage, and they're doing fantastically well. They're headed up by Nafani, who is kind of an IGL, an in-game leader who has come under some scrutiny. And they have a single veteran helping to basically keep an emotional base, I would think. Nafani can actually get quite energetic, quite hype when most of these players are quite subdued. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how they play out here. Shiro is a monster opper. Exile is a deadly rifler. And with Hobbit in the veteranship, he can really pull out some clutches. And so this is a very good and fun team to watch. And the question is, can this group of youngins win not just the gunfights and fight their way deep into this tournament, but can they turn into the world beaters that a lot of us kind of really want them to become? Next up, we're going to have Ents, and this is going to be a rebuilt Ents from earlier in the year. They have Scrappy as their IGL, who will be the man there in the center. He has been a wonderful personality to actually keep in the scene and has shown himself to be quite a top tier IGL, being able to scrap together these international rosters and get top side of the world basically. He's what's this saying? Yeah. So he has kind of several standouts here that we can look for and hope for. With Spinks being gone and needing to actually have an upgrade in the rifle position, they've taken Sun Pius, who I'm frankly just calling like Spain's golden opera. He's been taken over from Movistar, an all-Spanish team, and he was one of their major standouts, and we're looking to see how well he gets integrated. The other one is the Danish rifler, Valde, who has been has not had the same kind of opportunities and been stuck elsewhere. So Valde stalled rifler and Sun Pius for their big opper. And then my favorite player actually in this team is Diha. He's a very quiet guy. I believe he is Polish, and he's quite sturdy, quite reliable, and can just get multi-frags on rounds. So that is a very fun team to sort of look around on. And this team's been looking pretty good following the rebuild after losing their star rifler Spinks over to Vitality. So I'm really excited to see how much further they go. I don't expect them to go too far because they're still pretty new with this roster. They've maybe had 3 months with this roster and like a few tier 1 tournaments. But I won't put it past Scrappy and their coach Saw to be able to put together another like top 5 team. Next up, we're going to have the big ol' FaZe clan. And as of this recording, they're currently knocked out of the Rio Major, which is tragic, but we can still actually run some highlights on what we were looking for out of them. Brokey, kind of a rifler turned into an opper, powerful player, can really pull out clutches. Anyone in this team can really pull out a clutch. Twist is a single North American on the team. Everyone else is Danish, Latvian, and Danish. I'm trying to remember where. I believe Robs is somewhere from the eastern part of Europe. This team was ranked number 1 in the world coming into this tournament, and we're slated to be the most winningest team inside of a year's calendar, going back-to-back major winners, and kind of helping to put Kerrigan on the map as the GOAT IGL, which is quite the feat that we're looking for out of him. Kind of it's between him and the former Astralis IGL GOAT Glaive. To win majors back-to-back. Twist actually is also currently in contention, at least from what I can tell, to try to actually take the GOAT of NA away from Elige. That still remains to be seen. I think some more trophies might need to be won. He does carry his weight quite well on this team. And the really fun narrative around for this team is the fact that Rain and Kerrigan are some of the oldest CS players in the scene. Kerrigan's around 31, 32, and Rain is, I believe, 28. So they are both straddling that fence of just 30, which is usually around retirement age for most esports players. I think luckily because CSGO doesn't really change as often, doesn't get patched as often, like say League of Legends or Overwatch, it has permitted these kinds of players to stick around for years, and for Kerrigan, who's been in the game for like 10 years or whatnot, to actually win his first major world championship trophy at the age of 31. So big expectations for them in this tournament. Unfortunately, they fell apart on the day. Next up, we're going to have Fnatic. This is kind of a scrappy team that's been put together and actually even IGL'd by a replacement IGL who has proven himself to do quite well. It's going to be Mezzi right here. He's going to be flanked by one of the oldest players in the world, which is Crims, who has been on Fnatic for years, going back to when Fnatic was probably one of the top 2 best teams ever to play the game. Nikodaz has been a new add along with Roy, and they are decent things to point out. Roy is a very consistent older player as well. Nikodaz is just flash out the gates star opper, and I think we could still expect a lot of things to really help to come from this team in terms of upsets and wins. They are not slated by any means to go very deep, probably even go to playoffs, but they have done very well so far in this tournament, and they are always kind of this secret little fun surprise. They're going to get wins over top teams, and there's no reason that anyone on this team should be underestimated. Mezzi might have transferred over to the IGL role, but all factors point to he's doing the IGL role well while still being able to pull out his star rifler skills that have been quite potent, quite present for a while now. Next up is going to be the lone Brazilian team at Brazil's first ever major. This is going to be headed up by Art, their IGL, very aggressive IGL. and he is going to have two of the best riflers in the world, some would say. Queserado here on the right, and Yuri on the left. Yuri being probably the more well-rounded player, depending on who you ask, but they have been able to show themselves quite well as long as this team doesn't collapse. They have their opera over on the side of Safe, who feels pretty under. From what I've heard, when he was back on Pain Gaming, another Brazilian team, he was actually a damn near trying to hard carry the team and doing quite well at that. But he hasn't not been utilized in the same way here on Fury. It's been much more of a passive utilization from the games that I've seen, and most of the aggression and a lot of it feels like from Art trying to like peek his head around the map and plays such as that. So this is kind of is a very like scary thing to realize, that Brazil is a very intense fan base, and it's been a very like high energy tournament so far watching it live. But this team is Brazil's best hope of winning the major and returning to like back in the SK gaming days of 2016 when Fallen's team was just taking the world by storm. And the big question to sort of point out is their last major tournament performance at ESL, they just fell apart at the playoffs going against Outsiders, which is a team contending to try to get in like the top 10 and has been rebuilt with kind of scraps of what they had. And Furia just collapsed. It was insane. They just fell apart. So the fans in the crowd may be able to bolster them and be really encouraging when they're doing well, but it's kind of scared to think that this there's a possibility for the crowd to turn on this team if they start falling apart when we get into the more higher pressure moments in the tournament. Next up, we're going to have Heroic. This team feels like a joke sometimes because it's a team that we've had that has a lot of expectations, should be getting championships or should be winning some trophies, but they've just not been able to bring it together, even with slight roster adjustments, bringing in Yabby over here, who has also had to like adjust where his role set. Stown being their standout star carry as it's recently emerged in the last year, and headed up by one of the loudest voices in the scene, Cadian, who is an aging opper, just to play a little bit of tease on there. He's also their IGL, one of the few IGL oppers. He's also great to watch, high energy, big screams, big yells, and kind of the heart of the team, and also kind of the villain sometimes on the stage, depending on what kind of crowd he is working with. This team can do damage, but they just have not been able to actually get through it. Every time they get deep, they choke. It's just a guarantee. It's money well made on a betting cycle. So it's really the question of can this team, once we're starting to get later into this tournament, really pull it out against the pressure? You know, they're like they kind of have a similar Cloud9 like narrative around them, but Cloud9 was like winning tournaments and also won IEM Dallas like I think maybe 6 months ago or something like that, and Heroic's just not been able to really overcome their mental blocks, it would seem, sometimes, because they look like they're really got it together, they're really flowing, they've got it, movements are great, Cadian's performing, and then it just kind of falls apart. So we shall see how they roll from there. Next up is going to be Mouse, and this is basically just this team is going to be pretty okay with just whatever they accomplish at this tournament. Headed up by Dexter, Australian IGL. Is that working? Yeah. Headed up by Dexter, Australian IGL. He's finally actually showing up well with this. I think the academy coach and a lot of these academy players are actually helping this team perform way better at the tournament so far. They've mostly been having a lot of wins with best of one. So when this, now that we've gotten sort of into best of threes for elimination and confirmation for into playoffs, this is where the team's probably going to falter. But they can be a really fun team to watch. Do not recall outright like all the players on them because most of them are new and they have yet to really like settle themselves as powerful and consistent and star players. They've had their flashes of brilliance, but this team is still kind of growing, and I think they've just added one more player from the academy roster. So this team still is very young in terms of how long the 5 players have been together. And then next, we're gonna have Navi. This is what I want to actually have like nailed into my friend's brain, is that this man right here is the GOAT. This is the best player to ever have played CSGO. This is the Michael Jordan, the Faker, the Tiger Woods of CSGO. He is consistent. He is a hard carry. He is their opper. He is without a doubt the best person ever like grace the server of a CSGO match. He is the best standout you can run for, and he's kind of turned himself into being able to actually like start to win championships back to back in a way. This is the team. This team, Navi, is the one that is, at least up until today, contending phase for top in the world. And with Simple finally getting his first major about a year ago, after having a slog, a very long history of pretty much just dog shit teams that he's had to hard carry, he finally has the GOAT's cabinet, as I'm calling it. Diaz off to starting off right here, far right. His Perfecto, his this might be contentious. His Clutch Czar. Next up, the Hand of the King is going to be Electronic, the IGL of this team, and super strong rifler. Some of these people, these are 2 guys that should never go away, and regardless of international conflicts. Next up is going to be the Prodigal Son, or at least the standout rookie of this team, who has been having a slump this year, but inside of his freshman year, Bit helped this team win a major. And if Bit gets himself together, this team can just win by clicking heads. The final member is Some Dying Young, who has been a very recent add and still feels like he's in a very extended tryout phase. And he can show himself pretty well, but he's older, and it may just be that Blade, who is the general of this army, the strategist behind the mind behind this team. It may just be Blade is really just taking his time to make sure he finds like the next really right fit, and maybe even actually confirm whether or not Bit is going to be able to return to the kind of form or keep a form close to that ridiculous rookie year that he had. But this is the team that basically at least Simple has chosen. He's chosen this org for probably the rest of his career, to put himself not just in the history of CSGO like he has, but in the history of esports. So he's kind of back at this major to reclaim his title. It was taken away from him by FaZe at the last major. And what's great in terms of the narrative around this player, around Simple, is that this is very clearly not a team that he's going to have to hard carry. He's actually done the thing of rounding out his table to rule the kingdom, to win his kingdom. And so it's just ready for war on all sides for this team. And they are the ones to beat. They are the ones to beat, and they could be pretty much just one of the top 3, top 5 teams that are slated to win this whole thing. Especially with now that FaZe has been eliminated. All right. Next up, it's going to scale down a little bit on the hype here. This is going to be NIP, a full newly formed roster in a way here. There's been some rotations here. Alexi B. This is normally a full Swedish roster, full Swedish team. Ninjas in Pajamas, but they've added in a very solid IGL in Alexi B. He's basically a very structured IGL, and we should expect the same out of this team. We should expect this team to roll very well with it. I would actually put them up as actually having 2 to 3 star riflers, and Rez Hampus, who is the former IGL and would probably be their standout lurker right now, because that's what he was doing when he was calling. And then Brolin as the young star Swedish rifler. Essetec is just the lone Dane. Just the man's been rotating teams for years now. Just has bad luck with it. All good players. Rez has taken up the opera role recently, and maybe even doing it better than Essetag was. So this team is still in flux, and I think still like getting themselves situated. But they've shown well early on in the tournament. So this team can be pretty fun to watch and just see how they develop and grow. Any other notes on them? Star Rifler format. And this is actually really fun. I would have worn the G2 jersey today because Alexi B went from got let go from G2, disappeared. No one knows what was going on. And then very quietly, and then all of a sudden was on this team, and now he's at the major, and G2 isn't. So after that sour stint at G2, and they're not here, a little tragic. Time to I think this is going to be a very good opportunity for him to get some respect back on his name after what feels like he may not have gotten a reasonable amount of time on the team to like put a stamp on it and really make it happen. All right, next up. This is surprisingly my favorite team, actually. And they're my favorite team because none of these guys are like star riflers. In fact, this team, more often than not, is about this guy. It is about Jame, and that is Jame, because I don't know why. I love the narratives that run around this team because this team plays like no other team. It has an Opera IGL, which, as I said earlier, is quite rare. And they play a very slow and just super slow. Like, you can't even just say, like, methodical. Like, this is, like, if you want to watch chess and, like, really nerd out on all the little things that they're doing on a moment-by-moment basis, like, this is the team to watch. Chances of falling asleep during the game are quite high, but this team just knows how to just activate at the last, like, 10 seconds of the round, get the bomb planted, and be, like, set up. Their timing and James' brain and leadership has just brought this team back inside of contention for, like, I think they're inside of, like, top 10 now. Yeah, James quoted as leader of a man. Kicker here on the left of James. Go ahead and just it's gonna be quicker on to the left. That is his right hand, since Yukindar left and has gone over to Team Liquid. And the rest are sort of new faces. I believe it's Norbert. And I'm forgetting the rest of the team's names. But the good news is that they're back. The Outsiders, formerly Virtus Pro, they are back. Jame is back. And the good news, and as should be expected by everyone, is that they always come back. This team's never out of a match here. This team always takes it to 30 rounds, and they always are in contention to win. Doesn't matter how the first half went. Doesn't matter how the first 3/4 of the map go. This team is always prepared to grind it back. The mentality and how Jame runs this team is bar none the most exciting thing. It makes them. It's made this team. It's made Jane's team, especially when they had Yukindar, a very aggressive rifler, just a dark horse consistently to like win tournaments. If this team ever finds like a way to like get any upgrades on this, it could just spell like doom for some of the top side of the rankings. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to actually seeing how far this team can go and how many teams, how many top 5, top 10 teams they can like really upset at this tournament, because like them winning it is a far cry from possible. But them putting up like a good show and upsetting a few teams that they should lose to, that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. We're getting towards the end here. Next up is gonna be Team Liquid. Joke's on you. Their name's Team Liquid, so it's a T. So they're near the end of the damn list. Currently ranked, I think, top 2 or top 3 at HLTV at the time of this recording. And this team is NA Sweetheart. It's the only NA team. Evil Genius has died much earlier in this tournament, and this team kind of has to prove itself as good as its ranking based on how the last major tournament went with ESL Pro League. Lige, the NA GOAT, OC, an Opera on deck to hopefully help this team like pull it out, but he's kind of been around for a while, and he's either got to change up entirely who he's been for quite a while and show up as a tier 1 Opera, or Team Liquid are just going to be without an exceptional Opera once again. Nitro, the IGL of this team, I think he's probably gotten a decent bit of his CSGO roots back since returning from Valorant. It's not a star rifler by any means, not a star killer by any means. So we're kind of expecting for the brain of Nitro to fuse with the brain of Yukindar, who comes from Eastern Europe and a lot of that CSGO, and maybe even helping them get some of the brain struts that Yukindar absorbed from Jame when he was playing with Jame on Virtus Pro, now Outsiders. So that's one thing to be expected. Nav, kind of a Well, he's a clutch guy. He can be a secondary opper, and he's a sloth in terms of branding or something like that. And he can be considered for one of the top 3 NA players of all time, at least probably in current contention, since we're not even like getting Hiko involved with that, because Hiko's just retired and is just doing Valorant content these days. But without further ado, just to really drive it home, Yakindar is sort of like their star player now. He is their entry. He is the one helping them sort of rebuild their whole strat set and their whole mindset around this team. So this team may be able to rise back to the stardom that Team Liquid had when Twist was on it, and Stewie 2K. But they've still got much more to prove. It's still not clear to me. I still think they're overrated for just how and what they went through at ESL Pro League. So if you want to watch NA, you can watch this team, but I would not put them to win this tournament. Not at this rate. Even with FaZe getting eliminated, like that opens up the gate for a lot of others to take it. But Team Liquid are gonna have to do a lot of surprising to actually like earn that, to earn like the stature of being like top 5. Yeah, that's how I'm gonna run that. And to finish us out, the last team to worry about is going to be Vitality. And this is actually the team that I feel most excited about in terms of just like potential. So this team didn't have this guy. They had just a smaller time French rifler, and it was Apex, entry, IGL, major personality, like just a French Canadian, basically. A French Canadian, that's fucking great. He's like a French Canadian, but just funnier with crazier voices and crazier sounds. Great personality and pretty great leader from what we can tell. A very feel it kind of IGL. So it's not as minute, it's not as chess like, and which is probably what led to this team having a lot of issues when Magisk and Dupree joined, coming from Astralis, coming from that roster that was the greatest of all time and just won so many majors. So you have these two guys coming in. It did not show up very well until they got rid of Masuda and then brought in Spinks. And now Spinks, this Israeli just star rifler who could, if he continues with the performance that he had when he was on Ents, show himself to be one of the great riflers of our time. And that basically means that he's going to be sitting here trying to bolster up the kind of GOAT contender behind Simple, in Simple Shadow, and that's going to be the Zai Wu, who is this kid who just shot to stardom, I believe, right around the online era, and is basically just doing what he can, and is between hard carrying this team historically, and now it might actually find himself surrounded by a secondary carry with Spinks, and then solid support from two of the best to do it. Dupree was entry, and Magisk was kind of backup, and even did a little bit of IGLing before they left Astralis. So this team has fantastic potential to actually win this thing. And if this team actually comes together and actually gets themselves like really like synced up, they get the time in, because they're also playing with like 2 different languages, and they're trying to come back to, they've been trying to get to English together. Spinks comes from an all English speaking team in Ents, while it's French, Danish, and that just can lead to such a giant length of struggle to get everyone like intuitively like together and on the same page, and communicating things in such a timely manner as a round is progressing, so that the calls can be of use instead of wasted or just a good play turned into a bad play. So, and they are also backed by Zonic, formerly also of Astralis, which could be, he's the GOAT coach. I think Blade and him would be in contention, Blade of Na'Vi, but that's sort of the run of it. Am I missing anything? But yeah, so that'll be sort of the run of it, and that is going to be it. That'll actually take us all the way back to the beginning here. So as of right now, for this situation, just so it's all sort of cleared out, they're out. I think they're out. I know that's out. Dead. Still going. Bye. These are the ones that aren't really like caring about it anymore. Spirit and Sprout made it through EG. Bad News Eagles beat FaZe today. So this is about what I could say is left. Oh, OG's out. Yeah, so this is sort of what's left. And that's actually sort of there's your intro. There's your intro, my friend, on where we're at in the major, in the world championship, first world championship in Brazil. These are the rundowns of pretty much the top 12 teams that at least are attending, top 12 or 14 teams that are attending this world championship. And that can probably give you a good jump start into the CSGO meta narratives and micro meta narratives that underlie the entire esports scene. And I love this scene actually because it's very rare to find, especially coming from other games like League of Legends, it's very rare to find teams and players that can last so long. And I think that's entirely because the game changes very rarely. So things can just get better and get iterated upon over time. And so you get to get these beautifully long narratives of legends, of veterans that were stars turned into support players and IGLs. So that'll be that. Everyone enjoy the shows. And yeah, give me a follow, like, subscribe, yada, yada. Take care.